This episode of Out of Spec Reviews is brought to you by Magna. More on that later.
Let's go around a corner, shall we? Wheel spin, wheel spin! Yes! Hey, welcome back to another Out of Spec Reviews video. This is the Toyota BZ4X, as I'm sure you could tell immediately by the styling. But unlike the one Kyle had, this is front wheel drive. That's right, a front wheel drive EV, which I don't think should exist, but that's what Toyota has given us. I'm going to drive it and explain why it should be rear wheel drive, but also see how it differs from the all wheel drive. I've spent some time in the all wheel drive as well, and let's jump right in, shall we? Okay, this is not really that much different from the one Kyle spent time with, although that was red. But let me just walk you through really quickly the styling before we go drive this thing. The front fenders, that is just what everyone talks about. Unlike the Subaru, which is more of a cladding, you know, the Subaru Solterra, which is the sister car of this ET and GA platform, this does not have rugged off-road cladding. It's more of a shiny paint. It is actually a really beautiful shiny paint color, but it looks just, yeah, a little strange. But the headlights, really like those. And the grille is an interesting thing because it's not really a grille. It's just a flat plane, which is okay. I mean, it's not super flat, it's curved a little bit. And it's an interesting take. I don't actually dislike it, but I will say this will just eat rocks for breakfast. I mean, as you're driving down the highway, that is what we'll probably wear a lot. Just like we mentioned on the Rivian, just a big flat thing on the front will cause that to happen. Interesting choice with this color right here that kind of slices through the hood, makes the hood look pretty small, which I guess it should be. And what else is interesting is the camera, which is off center. Why does Toyota do that? Camera's right there, center is right here. The Prius 3rd gen that I had the rear view camera off center just like that. I don't really know exactly where all the radar sensors are because this does have radar cruise control, but that could be a reason. There are cameras on the mirror here, which is cool. And yeah, this is actually kind of rugged plastic. So that should in theory help protect the lower paint. Nice wheels, they're fine, nothing too crazy, just pretty typical Toyota wheels. And the rear end, which is always interesting with EVs, because what do you do with the back? Because traditional vehicles have exhaust. This does not. This just has kind of sweeping pieces of plastic there. A little bit of diffuser design down there. Tow hook cover. Definitely, yeah, very, very plasticky, as you would expect. And same thing back here. Yep, off-center rear view camera. Very Toyota. Nice slim little spoiler right here in the piano black. And the taillight design, which is kind of cool. It's interesting. I feel like they tried to make it look like an X, like here's half of the X, here's the other half of the X. That's just what they went with. This is a limited trim, so probably one of the upper trims. BZ4X logo right there, of course, and no all-wheel drive symbol. That's really the only way I can tell immediately as to whether it's a front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. This roof accent on the rear is very interesting. It's like a spoiler that only covers the edges, and then these are nice gloss black on the B-pillar, so definitely partially floating roof, but not quite like some of the Lexus ones that have like black all the way through here. So that does differentiate it for sure from Lexus. The charging port issue, yeah. Unlike BMW, who did a way where you could open the whole CCS with one, you do have to click both. Not a big deal, but that doesn't feel very nice. I don't know if this is actually pre-production or not. They didn't say. Oh, I forgot to mention the coupe roof, which I don't know. Tell us in the comments what you think of the coupe-like SUVs, because everyone seems to be doing that styling now, or at least offering a version with that, like the Q5 versus the Q5 Coupe. Inside BZ4X, nice moonroof, which I don't have open right now. It does have this pillar, so it's not like a fully open situation. Lots of gloss black everywhere with fingerprints everywhere. That's what you could expect with gloss black. This does not have anything here, nor here, just a cup holder. So no rear climate control other than opening the vents and closing them. No rear heated or cooled seats or anything like that. Slightly disappointing. The front does have heated and cooled seats, and that's the front, as you can tell. Very, very interesting. Let's jump up there, because the gauge cluster is such a weird way they went about it. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it looks really dumb. Like, you get in the car, you see the screen where it normally is, which is the new infotainment, which is actually quite solid. But then you see this held back with these plastic arms that hold it way back there. And what you're supposed to do is look over the wheel. So right here is where my eyes line up, so you can see over the wheel at the gauge cluster. It kind of acts like a gauge cluster and heads-up display all in one, which is kind of cool. And I thought I wouldn't like it, but actually, I'm kind of a fan. Instead of looking at two things, like a gauge cluster through the steering wheel and a heads-up display above it, it's just all one thing, which is in kind of eyesight range. You just look down a little bit instead of looking way down here. So that's one way to do it. Yeah, a couple complaints. This is the data port for like CarPlay and Android Auto, which is hidden in this pretty terrible garage for wirelessly charging your phone. Makes your phone super warm because wireless charging makes phones warm, and just doesn't look that good in here. And to plug your phone in, it has to stay open because the cable can't go anywhere else. Don't love that. Charging port down here, which is USB-C, unlike the data port, which is USB-A. Strange. Cup holders here, which can be hidden with this sliding forward, or open it, or show some storage. And then capacitive buttons. I do welcome the climate control being down here, but the capacitive buttons are just, I don't like those. Plus, this is all piano black. The gear selector is cool. You press the collar down, which locks the doors, and then you can select reverse or drive. Where'd it go? Oh, then you gotta let go so it goes back up. Nice surround camera. It's really, really good quality. Put that back into neutral and then put on drive. There we go. So back into park. Buttons all around here. I guess a couple blanks, so you could have more things. There's blanks over here as well, if you can see that. It is featured with the JBL sound system, which is a really solid sound system. Not the best in the business, but one of the better systems for a quote-unquote non-premium brand, I will say. But yeah, otherwise, that's pretty much it. Good infotainment. I really am a fan of Toyota's new infotainment. I don't know if they did the digital mirror in this. No, they didn't. So it's just auto dimming, which is fine. Really like the normal mirror anyways. And this dash material is technically soft touch, but it feels like cloth wrapped around hard plastic. But I still think it looks okay. The overall design is decent. This feels meh. I've never liked the center of their steering wheels, but that's no surprise. It's a hard thing to design for. And yeah, going to do some efficiency testing if I can. We only have a little bit of time with these cars, so I'm trying to rush. And I'm going to try to do a quick highway loop with the BZ4X front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. So check out that video if you haven't yet, or it may not be up yet. I'm not sure. This trip is crazy. I'm at Toyota Headquarters Confidential, which is where all this is happening. So far in this short little drive, 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which is solid, I will say. Anyways, enough of that. Let's go driving.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Magna. Magna is a mobility technology company that is super unique because they touch every aspect of almost every car in the market, especially a lot of electric vehicles, and they even can produce vehicles from the ground up. Now, you may remember I shot a series just recently testing some of their new electric vehicle powertrains, so stay tuned for a lot of Magna content to come. We're going to be going in depth with some really interesting topics with these guys, and Out of Spec wants to thank Magna for sponsoring this review and tons of other videos to come right here on Out of Spec. We look forward to working with Magna to define and find out what the future of mobility looks like.
Driving the BZ4X front-wheel drive. I just hate saying front-wheel drive. There's like a stigma around it because that's always been kind of the, I don't know, it's less performance driven. And it's not just performance like, oh, rear-wheel drive sedans and SUVs are like the big, you know, BMW M stuff. No, battery electric vehicles have a different character. The challenge with front-wheel drive electric vehicles is that the weight is no longer over the front all the time. Now, they do have a lot under the hood of this car. Instead of a frunk, you have pretty much all the mechanicals in there. The front motor, the inverter, the 12-volt battery, a lot of stuff under there. So it's not quite like the Leaf or the Kona where it really feels, you know, the wheels slipping out from under it. But it is still, I think, a disadvantage. With a battery electric car that's rear-wheel drive, you have the whole weight of the car pushed back on the rear wheels to give you ample traction upon taking off. On the other hand, this is front-wheel drive and has 150 kilowatts of power, which is about 200 horsepower, and it still feels like, yeah, it's kind of fun. You can spin the tires, which is awesome because it's a, you know, essentially a base model that you can have a lot of fun in. I've just been driving around in standard mode for a while. There is an eco mode and a snow mode, which is interesting because the all-wheel drive one has an X mode, so slightly different look there. Every time you floor it, it just feels like the standard torque steering, like either a hot hatch or just a feisty front-wheel drive thing. It's just the nature of it. It is not the best 0 to 60. I mean, you get that initial launch just like the all-wheel drive one, and it's about the same launch, more or less, but it really kind of peters off a bit at higher speeds. That being said, 0 to 60 is still roughly 7 seconds or 8 seconds. Oh, I can't remember exactly. Not quick numbers, not Tesla. You know, even the standard base Teslas are much quicker. But that torque still gets you. And even with my spirited driving, I seem to be getting 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, so decent efficiency as well. I believe this is rated for 270 miles, has like a 71.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. Those are decent numbers. The issue that Kyle saw with the all-wheel drive one is the charging. Unfortunately, they do not give me enough time to get this to a charger because the nearest charging station for DC fast charging is like 40 miles away. So yeah, that's one of the challenges with DFW in general. I feel like they just don't have near enough chargers for the amount of people here, and as EV adoption continues to grow, that's going to be an issue. That being said, Toyota is working with EVgo to install many new chargers and have a 1-year unlimited charging session deal with your BZ4X. So that's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of EVgo, but we'll see where those chargers actually end up. Really is a fairly nimble-ish car. I mean, it's just not, it's not the most exciting to drive, but it's still electric, which is still more exciting than most of the bare bones competition. Now that I'm switched to eco mode, definitely a little bit different pedal mapping, of course, but it made very little difference in the actual driving feel. Pressing that pedal button on the dash, by the way, gives you kind of the higher region levels. You don't actually get to specify like the amount of region, but that's what seems to be their approach to kind of one pedal driving. Doesn't appear to be actual one pedal driving, but definitely helps with that normal EV driving feel where you let go of the accelerator and then it starts to brake, captures more juice on the region. You do have the meter on the interesting dashboard that you peer over the steering wheel at, to where it says how much power and how much of the region you're actually using. For some reason it made me stop completely to turn off traction control. That's very interesting. But now that it's off, let's go around a corner, shall we? Wheel spin, wheel spin! Yes! Yeah, traction control off equals wheel spin and fun front wheel drive skids in the BZ4X front wheel drive. It's about the same power as the ID4 rear wheel drive, so therefore the biggest difference really is drivetrain choice. Rear wheel drive versus front wheel drive. That would be an interesting shootout. Let us know if you want us to do it. Just kidding, we'll probably do it regardless. That would be very interesting, because these vehicles feel very similar to me. I mean, one is German and just does what you expect. One is Japanese, a little spicy in different reasons, and a little weird in how they implemented some things. But still really a fan of the BZ4X, more than I expected to be. It's just a good car. Some quirks and things that I dislike, but in general, I'm not going to complain if I'm handed the keys to a BZ4X. So thanks for watching. Let us know what you think of the front-wheel drive EV platforms that are out and about. I mean, Polestar 2 went that direction, or was that Volvo C40? I don't know. Those are so, you know. But there are some others out there. But I feel like most people are going rear-wheel drive, and I think for good reasons. And that's what I think it should be. Now, the all-wheel drive BZ4X, forgot what I was in, has a completely different motor setup. So this is a 150 kilowatt front motor. All-wheel drive has an 80 kilowatt front, 80 kilowatt rear, which is strange. So that's a total of 160 kilowatts, so 10 kilowatts more. So barely any horsepower more, like so similar, and they really do feel quite similar. I was wondering why they didn't just add the 80 kilowatt motor to the back axle, but then we found out the Lexus RZ has what that is, basically this front motor plus the 80 kilowatt rear motor, and that one should be much more spicy. So we'll find out soon enough. Anyways, in the meantime, thanks for watching. Let us know what you think of the BZ4X, or affectionately known in my mind as the BZ4X.